Cranial Ram is finally banned in the Pauper format. We got a pre-ban announcement from Gavin Verhay with an article, a video, just everything in between, talking about his reasonings, his ideas for the format moving forward, and why a card like this was even allowed to exist. Also addressing the questions of why this was even printed as a common in the first place. And I'm going to go through all of that information in today's video. And if you want to stick around with me and you want to see more videos like this, leave a like on the video, or I'm going to look to ban your favorite card out of your favorite Pauper deck. I'm specifically looking at you Elves players. I'm going to be making sure Basic Forest is banned if you don't leave a like on this video. So let's hop right into it. But I haven't actually watched this video at all. I've gotten pieces of tidbits from tweets and folks sharing it and everything, but let's hop right into the video itself and just kind of really talk about what this is all going to be about.
Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhay from Wizards of the Coast, Magic designer, and also a member of the Pauper format panel. As a reminder, we're the group that manages and maintains Pauper and its ban list. While I may be the one talking here, all 7 of us talk all the time throughout every week. We share deck lists, talk through event results and metagames, and share trends we're noticing in Pauper, not only online, but also around the world, as our members span 5 countries. We talk through every decision and what we're seeing to reach a conclusion. So I'm speaking for all of us here and sharing the results of many conversations and thoughts. And today, we're coming to you with a unanimous decision. We are banning Cranial Ram and Pauper ahead of it being released in Modern Horizons 3. This is fairly unprecedented and not something to expect to happen again in Pauper or any other competitive paper format anytime soon. Now, there are a bunch of caveats to this decision. I'm going to break down all the reasons why we chose to do this now, but I really want to begin by stressing the atypical nature of this situation. It is not precedent for any change in how we're handling this format or others. It is a very rare and special exception due to some specific reasons.
So I want to pause this here because I think there's going to be a lot of people out here where in the future, they're going to be like, well, the precedent was set. They pre-banned X in this format. Like they pre-banned this card in Pauper. They can pre-ban cards after pre-ban for. No, look, this is a special exception.
Additionally, though I'm a Wizards employee talking about this here, that's mostly for visibility. The philosophy of bannings for the formats managed directly by Wizards hasn't changed, and bannings before release are extremely unlikely in any of those formats. But Pauper is a community-driven format, and we're keeping that in mind as we make this decision. Okay,
we're not going to get Treasure Cruise again.
Let's dive in. First, why are we banning this card? Cranial plating has dominated multiple formats in Magic history in conjunction with the artifact lands and cheap artifacts. It's very easy for this card to hit hard, and if you can't remove it, every single creature becomes a must-answer threat. It is banned in Pauper. Much more recently, we had to ban all that glitters. This card does close to what cranial plating does, but unlike plating, it can't be reused. Now, these cards are strong, but on top,
this is a thing that people, there are actually people telling me or insinuating that glitters was better than plating. Are you like, I think these people like fundamentally just like live in a zoo or like with animals. Like you're genuinely not thinking. Like cranial plating can be reused over and over and over again. Just like how every threat is a must answer. Just glitters was answer 1 threat. That's it. Then glitters is gone. Glitters doesn't get reattached. Okay, it was the threat of glitters. Once it was on, it was hard to remove.
Isn't very enjoyable. Playing against a deck with these in the early game, if you can't remove it on an invasive creature, you'll quickly lose. And in the late game, you can never tap low because if you don't have a removal spell, you can just die to a huge power boost. It makes games very polar. And that brings us to Cranial Ram. When we last talked with the All That Glitters ban, I said this. There is one common for Modern Horizons 3 that has a high likelihood of needing to be banned in Pauper, as it is like a card we have banned in the past. And indeed, Cranial Ram was that card. The comparisons to cranial plating are pretty obvious, so let's talk about the differences. The first one is that it's color locked. You must be playing red and black to play it. While this is a restriction, right now, the most popular build of affinity in the format is Grixis Affinity, so it's not.
So again, it's not hard to cast, right? And a lot of people were also saying that with the amount of like hydroblasts that exist in the format as well, you could easily answer it because it's a permanent that's colored, you could hydroblast it. But I mean, again, dies to removal is very like not an argument these days.
It does matter for Hydroblast and Blue Elemental
Literally
Blast,
brings it up.
which is worth mentioning though. The second is it doesn't have the instant equip. This is somewhat meaningful. If you ever played against cranial plating, you know the bulk of the card's power is just in equipping it normally, especially on an evasive threat, but it certainly does come up, especially as a way to push through the final batch of damage once your creatures outnumber theirs. The third is the increased equip cost. It's just a little less efficient to use. While it looks minor, this is actually the most notable ding to me. The difference between 1 mana and 2 mana is gigantic. It makes you a little less explosive, and that extra mana in the early game really does.
I think for many in franchise Magic players, you may subconsciously understand this, but I want y'all to actually think about this, right? Really cement this thought in your head. The difference between 1 and 2 mana is double. 2 mana is double that of 1. It is double the cost. It is way more. The difference between 3 and 2 is a lot less. The difference between 4 and 3 is a lot less. You start to see how it becomes very fractionally, minorly different as it gets higher. The difference between 0 and 1 is near infinite. It's like it can't even be stated how different that is. But the difference between 1 and 2 is double. Right. And probably in terms of value, just even more of that. So really think about that just in terms of extrapolating it out to your card evaluation of other cards that you might see in the future.
But it's not all downsides. There's also the tremendous upside that it comes with a creature attached with the living weapon ability. Playing a turn 2 Ram is not a negative tempo play like Cranial Plating was. It's playing a creature with large power for 2 mana. This is a tremendous boost. When you look all of those over, this card is extremely comparable to plating on power level. While you want additional to equip and no instant speed does certainly make Ram a little bit weaker, it isn't by much. So this card is almost crazy.
It enters with the threat.
And Grixis Affinity is one of the best decks in the format, and we just had to ban all the glitters. It was pretty clear this card was unlikely to be okay. While theoretically, maybe the metagame moves enough with Modern Horizons 3 that this card works out fine, the odds to survive are extremely low. We built up lists and it slotted right in as easily as you would expect. So catching a ban is probably not much of a surprise. So now on to the next section. Why the pre-ban?
Why not let it sit in the format for a bit?
Against pre-banning or emergency banning cards. Cards should generally have to prove they are too strong, and it's not great practice to ban cards before people can even play with them.
I agree.
It's important to see if the theory behind the ban would actually bear out. After all, Magic is a game with a lot of interlocking pieces and an evolving metagame, and it's not always as straightforward as it looks. How many times have you thought a card would be so ridiculous it would need to be banned, and it ended up being just fine? Almost everybody has been there in making that.
This is 90% of the community. I have fallen prey to this as well. Before I start talking smack to everybody, this has been me on some occasions. I 90% of y'all in the comment section be like this. And also I know I get with a lot of the content that I make, there's a mix between modern, Pauper, and EDH. The amount of people that come into my comment sections of my shorts and stuff and be like, this isn't even that powerful. There's 3 other people in the pod, and someone will have to go in the comment section and be like, this is not an EDH skit. He literally says, are you playing this in modern? And people will be like, is this for EDH? Anyway, small little rant about my community and the lack of visibility.
Additionally, players will always wonder, could that card have been okay? If you pre-ban a card, players will ask to see it return to the format forever, and there's no proof one way or another, not unlike something like High Tide right now. I will note that Cranial Ram is a unique example because it compares so directly to 2 ban cards, including a recent one. There isn't a lot of mystery around if it will be strong. It will. Pre-banning also sets up dangerous expectations. Once we've done this once, we will be asked to pre-ban cards in the future. We have no intent to do that, and you should not expect it. So given all these reasons why not to pre-ban a card, why pre-ban a card now? Given normal circumstances, we would let it run its course and check back in probably 2 weeks after release once it's all proved out. However, there are some major Pauper events about to happen.
So happy they addressed
after Modern Horizons 3. First, on June 15th, there is the Magic Online Creator Showdown with Pauper as the format. This is a Magic Online.
I was so I'm part of the creator program as well, and I was selected for this. I was trying to swap. I wanted to join the modern event, but I had my fear of actually not joining this event, so I backed out because I thought Cranial Ram would be everywhere, and I didn't want to play that format. So it sucks. Now my spot's been taken out, but I made that choice. It's fine. And I'm happy they're kind of addressing it. Shout outs to this. If you want to see MTGO creators, your favorite creators kind of jam out on the 15th, I was almost there. But unfortunately, I won't be able to play this or the modern event. But that's okay.
Tournament with $5,000 on the line and showing off the brand new Pauper format post Modern Horizons 3. It's poised to be a really great feature to watch for Pauper, and one that would likely be dominated by Grixis affinity decks with Cranial Ram if it was left around. A week later, there are some Pauper events worldwide, the most notable and largest being Paupergeddon in Pisa. This gigantic Italian Pauper tournament has been as large as around 800 players in the past and is the largest paper Pauper tournament series in the world. It is a very special event for that community. If we left Cranial Ram legal, it would almost certainly be the deck of the tournament, and instead of letting the dynamic format shine with new Modern Horizons 3 cards, it would become warped.
Okay, yo, back up though. Yo, we ain't talking about Basking Brood Scale and Infinite Mana. We ain't talking about Infinite Colorless Mana and Basking Brood Scale though, right? Sneaky Snacker though? When you draw your third card in a turn from your graveyard to the bottom. Hey, yo, wait, I have not seen this card. Brainstorm. Hey, yo, wait, this card's crazy. Wait. Who knew about this card in the comment section? Let me know in the comment section down below. Oh, I'm so behind on the comments on this set. I've been focusing on modern and EDH, but yo, okay, all right. Sneaky Snacker. I'm gonna move my camera to the middle here. This says, look at this. Whenever you draw your third card on a turn, return Sneaky Snacker from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. You can do this at instant speed with Brainstorm. Wait. Okay, back to the video. Sorry.
3 cards, it would become warped around Cranial Ram, a card we would likely ban the following week, immediately invalidating the deck lists of the tournament. Now, do I have faith that people could adapt their decks to fight Ram? Certainly. People could start main decking their Cast Into the Fires and Hydroblast and any number of other artifact removal spells. There are ways to beat affinity if you build your deck in a certain way. Historically, when the entire metagame tries to counteract something, it helps keep the problematic deck in check. But is that fun? Is it enjoyable for everybody to have to warp their deck around fighting Cranial Ram? And the answer is no. That's a textbook example of an unhealthy format. So after a lot of discussion, we decided to do something really atypical here and ban it early. It's true we could play it by the book and let these events be warped, but who is that process benefiting? The card is almost a lock to be banned, and it compares directly to 2 previously banned cards, and it doesn't engender.
I would say if it wasn't for the 2 big events like the Creator Showdown and the Paupergeddon events, I'm pretty sure this card would not have been pre-banned. It would have been allowed for a week or 2 and then banned after that. But I'm 90% sure this decision was made primarily because of the events.
Fun play.
They didn't want to ruin 2 big events that folks have been planning for
ahead of these critical events. Now, I once again really want to stress, and if it seems like I'm saying this a lot, it's because it's really important. This is not precedent. This is not something to expect in Pauper again soon. Asking us to do this for any cards in the future is unlikely to lead to anything, and this is not something you should expect in any other.
Just for all y'all on Twitter and on YouTube.
The Pauper format panel is a group external to Wizards, kind of like Commander. The process is a little different than usual. While we try to align our updates with the normal BNR cadence when we can go off schedule or do some pretty atypical things where we need to. Nothing is changing in how the formats fully managed by Wizards of the Coast operate. And this is one such time for a change, specifically because of the direct comparison to 2 banned cards and the 2 upcoming events. If either of those factors were different, this would not be happening now. And even as it stands, it took a lot of discussion to get here. I can't say enough how this was not done lightly. And I know there were people out there excited to play this card for the brief moment it would be legal. And to those people, I apologize. You won't be able to have your shining week with the broken card. There were other compelling reasons here for us to remove it. Now, a few other topics before we go. First, I've had a number of questions about why this card was made at common at all. After all, shouldn't we have known it was strong? I've said this before in previous articles and videos, and it bears worth repeating now. Each individual set should do what's right for the set, and we will react accordingly. That's the nature of Eternal formats.
So this means that they made this a common for the draft environment, for maybe some codes on, some wild cards on Arena and everything, but this is what's right for the set, for the draft environment they want to curate for that. It is not made for Pauper.
and Pauper is no exception. Sets shouldn't be trying to dodge the Pauper metagame, and if the lead designer of Modern Horizons 3 thinks this card should exist for Modern and be common for Limited, that's totally fine. Pauper can ban cards if we need to. Pauper's player base is devoted, but ultimately smaller compared to other formats, and people shouldn't design around us. The focus.
So that's the thing I think kind of sucks. I don't really like that statement, although it's true. I understand why it needs to be said. I just think it's a little unfortunate that not enough players play Pauper where we can be kind of as big and cared about. It's nice that we have a Pauper format panel, but I think there's just a lot of stigma around the format because, you know, it doesn't have a big GP around it. And, you know, it's seen as the poor man's format because it's just made up a bunch of comments. Just kind of unfortunate. The format deserves so much better.
Is not to prevent the creation of cards, but to act to prevent them from being in the format for long if they are harmful. Fall from favor being printed because it's what Commander Legends needed at common is okay. It being legal for nearly 2 months is not, and that's what we're trying to prevent here. Second, I want to talk about affinity and artifact lands in general. It's not invisible to us that these cards have caused us tons of trouble and led to many.
Okay, I'm gonna address this right now. If you ban the untapped artifact lands, forget the tap ones. The tap ones are one thing, but if you ban the untapped single color affinity lands, I will not be playing Pauper anymore. I think that is on the equivalent of banning Brainstorm, Days, stuff like that in Legacy. I think that's on this. Like the artifact lands are part of the identity of format. If you hate it that much, get good. The tapped ones, though, I could see an argument for it. I could see an argument for it leaving, but the format fundamentally by identity, I believe, needs the monocolored untapped artifact lands. These ones, though,
bans. We investigated what if we banned the bridges and let Ram stand. We built up some decks in this world, and ultimately Ram was still a problem as long as any cycle of artifact lands remained, which made sense given Cranial Plating was a ban-worthy card long before bridges. Rakdos Affinity, what we thought would take over, still looked incredibly strong without bridges. Additionally, given that we are adjusting the format with 2 large upcoming events in mind, removing bridges is a really large change that we'd rather not do right before these events. Let's see what the results of those events are and use those to help inform the future state of the format and if someday a ban like that might be necessary. It's also worth mentioning there's another card in the set, Refurbished Familiar, that is slated to be very strong in affinity as well.
Really? So this one I've thought about because it gets you to discard cards. It's essentially 1 mana for a 2/1 with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent that can't, you draw a card. So once they're out of cards, this is really popular. This is really powerful. Is it worth it though? I guess, like, you can recur it. It's like a one-time effect kind of, right? Like you get like maybe 2 of these off at any point during the game. Okay.
And definitely would have played strong alongside Ram, which is another reason to axe the Ram. We're keeping an eye on it as it looks to both be very strong in current affinity decks,
Refurbished Familiar
alongside cards like Glinthawk. But there's nothing to change involving that card at this time. Finally, in addition to artifact lands, we have our eyes on if mono red needs anything touched. But given the gargantuan impact Modern Horizons 3 is likely to have, we want to let the set come out and settle.
That's interesting. We just had Swift Spear banned too. Mono red again. Is red just too powerful? Is Lightning Bolt the problem?
So when can you expect to hear from us again? If something is incredibly dominant or broken, you can expect us to check in within a few weeks. Otherwise, it will likely be a bit longer as we let the metagame naturally evolve.
I like that.
We want to strike the right balance of stepping in and letting the metagame find answers. I hope this gives you good visibility into this decision and why we made it. We're excited to see what Modern Horizons 3 does to the format, just without Cranial Ram in the mix. If you have any thoughts, please feel free to reach out to all of us directly or post in the comments down below. Otherwise, on behalf of the entire PFP, this is Gavin.
All right, so let's hop into a bit of a kind of concluding thought section here. Full disclosure for anyone that's made it this far into the video, I'm wearing this shirt right now because I should be on vacation. Okay, I should be outside right now, but Pauper's getting stuff banned, so I got to make myself a video. So again, you better be leaving a like on the video because I should be on vacation, and I'm going to ban Basic Forest if y'all don't do it. So Cranial Ram being banned, I think all the decisions are very sound. I'm very happy with the video kind of being addressed that way. I'm kind of nervous about banning artifact lands. I will say I think banning the bridges are a fair conversation to have. As an affinity player, I think that's fine. And I think maybe visiting something in mono red might be a little too much. I think mono red really helps keep the format faster than it is. Games can go on a really long time. They can be really back and forth, and a lot of folks don't like that. It just feels like a lot of games and decks aren't incentivized to have a clock. And I think mono red can really push that boundary. It's good. I think it can be managed, but I don't know if we need to touch something out of mono red. Regardless, though, Cranial Ram, I think all of the reasonings are correct. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I think there's a lot of folks out there that wanted the card to be out there and available for a couple weeks. And I think, again, if it wasn't for those events being out there, I'm pretty sure the Pauper format panel would have just let it go for like a week or so, 2 weeks. But because of those events, they didn't want them, like they wanted them to be valuable. They wanted them to be good showcases of the format moving forward, an introduction into the Pauper metagame post Modern Horizons 3, not just a window of time where Cranial Ram was absolutely insane and people just don't watch because they're like, this card's going to get banned anyway. They want viewership to get in there. There's a lot of factors that came in to kind of advise that. So again, that's Cranial Ram being banned. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm really excited to be trying Pauper, in the following weeks. And let me know what builds you want to see on the channel. You want to see some Grixis Affinity? You want to see some combo? What are some deck lists that you want to see revisited with some gameplay? I'm definitely going to be looking at some potential Turbo Fog as well, and some potential, of course, as always, some One Land Spy as people try things out. So sound off in the comments. Let's talk some Pauper, and let's talk some Modern Horizons 3.